All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I remember when the rapper Eminem first came to the forefront. At least the first time I became aware of him was watching the old MTV show TRL and seeing his video for quote unquote "My Name Is" appear on the show. And I said to myself, this is some weird looking shit. Like, who the hell is this guy with this bugged out, "Hi, my name is." And I noticed that MTV was constantly trying to push and promote him. I wasn't even sure what the hell he was. I didn't know if he was a rapper or one of those grunge garage type of artists that was popping up all across the music scene, like Limp Bizkit, so on and so forth. So I just put him as an artist and a rapper and that bugged out record of his to the side. But coincidentally, I used to listen to Don Imus. Many of you out there might know who Don Imus was. He was a quote unquote shock jock whose show ran on syndication on WFAN, the sports radio station here in New York. At the time I listened to WFAN. This is back in like 98 or 99. And Don Imus started playing other songs from Eminem's initial album, the Slim Shady LP. And I was like, wow, this dude could really rap. They played the song Rock Bottom, and I think they played the other song, I Just Don't Give a Fuck, something like that. And I was like, okay, so this white boy must be a rapper, and he could rap a little bit. So I thought nothing of it. I just left it alone. I listened to the album, the Slim Shady LP. I thought it was very good, very funny, in certain tracks, so on and so forth. And then he came out with the next album, which was the Marshall Mathers LP, which is considered now a classic quote-unquote hip-hop album. And I had to admit that he stepped his game up lyrically. I thought it was a very good album, borderline great album. But then I noticed in the media, he went from being underrated to now being called the best rapper in the entire industry. And then by his third album, The Eminem Show, they started calling him the greatest rapper of all time. So I realized what they were trying to do. They were trying to socially engineer the entire hip-hop genre. And Eminem made a joke of it, calling himself the Rap Elvis, because he knew that's what he was. Elvis, of course, is known for being the first quote-unquote Caucasian mainstream rock and roll artist who basically helped to take rock and roll from the black artists who inspired him so much and transfer it over to a lot of the groups that were being brought over to the Americas from Great Britain, who basically had been formed by the Tavistock Institute to take this invention of the so-called black man and use it for mental manipulation of the masses. But that's neither here nor there. The point being is that they started to call Eminem the rap version of Elvis because he started to call himself that. He realized that he had went from underrated and disrespected as a rapper because he was Caucasian to now being overrated. And I'm starting to wonder if this is what the mainstream liberal sports media is going to do with Mr. Christian McCaffrey, the star running back of the Carolina Panthers. When I watch him play, he's clearly very impactful, very explosive, has good moves, decent wiggle, but I don't see anything super special about him. When I say super special, I'm talking about players like Marshall Faulk or Thurman Thomas, his first 5 or 6 years with the Buffalo Bills. People like that. When you talk about combo running backs, or say a Roger Craig back in 1985 or 86, somewhere along that time period, which is where you would have to cast Mr. Christian McCaffrey as a running back, because he's like a combo running back. They want him to run the ball, catch the ball out of the backfield, line up in the slot, so on and so forth. I see him having maybe another 2 to 3 years with this level of productivity, and they're starting to fall off, because to me he's just too slight to continue to take that type of punishment. But we'll see. But will he be the beneficiary of the Eminem effect? Will he maybe even win an MVP award that he doesn't deserve because he's a Caucasian running back who's a very good player, borderline great player, but he's going to have to do something historic as well as lead his team to the playoffs to deserve an MVP award? I'm trying to remember if Adrian Peterson won the MVP award in the year that he ran for over 2,000 yards. I believe they gave it to Peyton Manning, and they gave Adrian Peterson the Offensive Player of the Year award. I guarantee you, if Christian McCaffrey runs for 2,100 yards, he will get that MVP award of the NFL. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
We're going back to the NFL, guys. Coming off having the third most yards from scrimmage in a season in NFL history, Christian McCaffrey landed at number 6 on the NFL top 100 players list. McCaffrey was the highest-ranked running back, and the only non-quarterbacks ahead of him were Aaron Donald and Michael Thomas.
Let me say this. Do I think that Christian McCaffrey deserves to be ranked as high as number 6? I'm not quite sure. I will have to think about that. Do I think that he's the best running back in the NFL? No, I do not. Do I think that he deserves to be ranked the highest amongst all NFL running backs for the year that he had last year? Yes, I do. I'm not quite sure if he should be ranked in the top 6 players in the league, but he was voted that by his peers. So clearly that's what they think. But do I consider him the best running back in the NFL? No. There's probably about 3 running backs I would take in the league over him right now, including Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, so on and so forth. But Christian is right there. Talent for talent, Saquon Barkley is the most talented running back in the NFL, and it's not close. It's just that Saquon needs a better offensive line, and he's going to have to stay healthy. But he's easily the best running back in the NFL, talent for talent.
McCaffrey deserved to be the 6th-ranked player and highest-ranked running back.
Yeah, and he's the highest-ranked running back ever. Only Adrian Peterson's been ranked higher when he had.
There's that Eminem effect.
The season skip, he was
2012.
Yeah, he was the number 1 ranked player, the top 100.
Also, please keep in mind that when the media was programming people to believe that Eminem was not only the best rapper in the industry, but the best rapper of all time, you had many prominent and quote-unquote distinguished black rappers who were saying that, yes, Eminem is not only the best rapper today, but he might be the best rapper ever. So it's very clear that they were establishing an industry narrative in order to propel Eminem upward. Are they now trying to do the same thing with Christian McCaffrey?
Yes, he's coming off a historic season, Skip. He was 3rd in rushing. He was 2nd in catches for a running back. He had the 3rd most yards from scrimmage. Only Chris Johnson and Marshall Faulk, when Marshall had that historic season, Chris Johnson went over 2,500, Marshall Faulk was over 2,400, and this kid was over 24. So he's done things that very few people have ever done in the NFL. So when you look at it up, Skip, Derrick Henry averaged 5.1 yards per carry. Christian McCaffrey averaged 4.8 yards a carry. Skip, when you look at him, you don't think a guy, when you catch that many passes, it's not like you catch the ball and you go in the end zone and you just run out of bounds and nobody tackle you. People are tackling you. People are
That's why I state that you can expect productivity like this from Christian McCaffrey for maybe another 2 or 3 seasons, and then eventually they're going to try to move him into the slot.
And then you throw in another 200 to 300 carries. So that's 400 opportunities that someone has had an opportunity to put shoulder pads, helmets on you, and then you land on the ground.
Yep.
So, Skip, for him to be as durable as he is and still possess...
Thus far. What is he going into now, year 4? We'll see how much longer that lasts, but I give him credit for his epic level conditioning. He's an extremely well-conditioned athlete. Far better conditioned than Ezekiel Elliott is.
Breakaway speed.
Yep.
Still be able to catch as many passes. There's no question he should have been ranked in the top 10. I think what it is, Skip, is that we don't normally see guys like Christian McCaffrey, a white running back. The last one that we've seen that had this kind of, well, he didn't have the success he had, but he was on the cover of Madden, was Peyton Hillis. Skip, remember he had that monster season?
Right, but you can't compare Peyton Hillis to Christian McCaffrey, Shannon Sharp. Like, Shannon is so caught up in the low-level racial banter. If you're going to make a racial evaluation about Christian McCaffrey, then it should be something that's 3-dimensional. Something, not to toot my own horn, but along the line of what I'm broaching with the Eminem effect as I see it. Because he is a great player. But the thing with the Caucasian athlete is they're underrated until they prove that they can compete with the so-called black athlete. Then they become overrated. But you cannot compare Christian McCaffrey to Peyton Hillis, who basically was just a battering ram of a running back that everyone knew was not going to last very long. It's the same thing that Shannon tried to do comparing Luka Doncic to Larry Bird. 2 players who have nothing in common other than their so-called skin color. Luka Doncic plays nothing like Larry Bird at all.
Cleveland, and then he just like disappeared. Mm-hmm. And so this is not normal. Back in the 70s, you know.
Well, haven't you heard, Shannon Sharp? We're in the new normal now.
Last Zonkin, you had Big John Riggins. Maybe John Riggins, Skip, maybe was the last runner.
Like they used to say around that time that Eminem was becoming very popular. It's a strange world we're living in now. The best golfer in the world is black. The best rapper in the world is Caucasian.
running back that we saw that could take over and dominate ball games. And we remember what he did in the Super Bowl, Skip. So what Christian McCaffrey is doing.
Go back and look at some old photos of John Riggins back in the late 60s, early 70s, and check out the afro that he had. It would not surprise me at all if 5 or 6 generations up the line, John Riggins had so-called black ancestry. Would not surprise me at all.
Because we don't normally see white guys at the running back position. And when they do, they come in, they Rex Burkhead, or they come in and they're specialists.
Yep.
This kid is an every down back. And maybe I'm a little biased. I've known the kid.
You're not a little biased. You're a bit of a jackass when it comes to certain conversations, Shannon Sharp. You guys had Christian McCaffrey on your show, and you brought up the white running back thing, and you could see Christian McCaffrey visibly cringe and bristle. He had a look on his face like, why the fuck is this idiot bringing up this dumb shit about me being a white running back? Like, it's time to move past this. I dominated in college. I'm dominating in the pros. Leave it alone. Leave it behind. But Shannon is so awkward when it comes to racial shit because he's still carrying baggage from his upbringing back in Georgia in the 1970s. He has to find a way to deal with a lot of that baggage because it comes out when he tries to talk about race, where he always missteps because he has no grasp of nuance.
Since he's been there, playing with his dad, knowing his mom.
Because his dad was...
Because his dad was a teammate of mine.
Yep.
And I still believe his dad could outrun him. I believe his dad in his prime was faster than Christian McCaffrey. I still believe
that. That is fast.
He was faster. He stayed behind people because they kept underestimating. But
I remember Ed McCaffrey when he played with the Giants. I believe that his first team was the Giants back in the early 90s, and then he ended up in Denver. And he definitely could play.
I do believe he deserved to be in the spot that he was in. And I believe he would have been even higher if he could have got his team into the playoff. Because remember...
Shannon, number 6 overall is a bit high. But once again, I can't quibble with it because it's the players who decided it. But to me, it just comes off a bit high for a running back who did put up historically great numbers, but for a team that was not even close to competing for the playoffs. So to me, it's like, did he put up those numbers because he's that great? Or did he put up those numbers because the Carolina Panthers are trying to market him as the face of the franchise, so they want everything to run through him? Let's throw 100 dump-off passes to Christian and have him become the first running back to rush for 1,000 yards and catch 100 cheap passes. That type of thing.
Peterson got that team into the playoff. Actually,
Ding.
Mistaken, Skip. Green Bay won the division because they had to go on the road and play Green Bay in Green Bay. But I believe he'd have been higher if he could have got this team into the playoffs. But
well, no shit. I mean, come on. If he could have got them into the playoffs, they might have voted him number 1.
I have no problem whatsoever with him being in the top 10 and him being number 6.
So, I hear everything you just said, and yet, I must admit, I still can't buy all the way into Christian McCaffrey.
Agreed.
The point where I say he's the best running back in football.
Agreed.
You've loved Saquon from the start, and now you've reversed field.
But see, here's the thing that I love about him is that he's durable. Saquon is missed time.
Well, he's durable until he's not. Saquon has had one major injury thus far, which is a high ankle sprain. He's had a couple of nicks here and there, but you also have to understand that the Giants have been a terrible team. They're not being ran very well right now. He needs help on the offensive line desperately. But Saquon, to me, is by far the most talented running back in the NFL. Saquon's one of those guys that all the other running backs in the league watch his tape.
You see, and I like Zeke, but Zeke doesn't give me the explosiveness and the catching ability. I like Saquon.
Zeke can catch the football better than you give him credit for. But no, he is no longer explosive.
Saquon gives me home run. Saquon gives me catching ability, but he doesn't have the durability. This kid has it all. And if you remember last night, what did Zeke say? What's the best part of his game? He has no weakness. He picks up the blitz because that's huge. Because you can't play every down if you can't step up there and take up.
And they showed a clip of him last night. He took on a linebacker and he stood him up.
Yep.
Okay, I get all of the above. I doubted his durability coming out of Stanford because that last year at Stanford, he stayed beat up all year and he did actually miss a couple of games.
Right.
That's my point. Skip is on fire when it comes to certain topics. This is one of them. I think that this kid, you can call him durable until he's not.
Is 0 games in pro football.
Correct.
That's 48 straight games. That's impressive.
Right.
It is impressive.
The most impressive of all.
With the amount of touches.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, yet, I'm just going to give you, I'm speaking my heart right now. If you told me, push comes to shove, going into next year, you can have Zeke or you can have this kid, I'm still taking Zeke.
So will I. Because I think that Zeke is built more for the playoffs than Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey comes off as one of these guys who will have a 1,250-yard rushing and 1,050-yard receiving season and then get to the playoffs and his team will lose in their first game and it will have 15 carries for 52 yards and 4 catches for 48 yards. Like, he just comes off to me as one of those guys.
A Cowboy fan, and I have been a Zeke fan.
And the thing about Zeke is that Zeke has that aura around him similar to an Emmitt Smith. He's not a spectacular runner, but you know, or at least you hope, that in big games, in big moments, he's at the very least going to run forward. Now, we've seen Zeke in a couple of playoff games where they needed him to get a yard and he couldn't get it. But at the very least, he doesn't play in the backfield.
It's about his year last year, but Zeke's got some magic to him where I know he can take over a game and impose his will on a defense.
I agree with that. But Zeke also has some magic to him where, just like a magician, he'll disappear.
Ways Christian McCaffrey can't because he's just not big and physical enough. He still impressed me, but he cannot establish the run between the tackles the way Zeke is still capable of doing. I didn't
Agreed.
consistently last year, but my point is, I think he's a great kid. We had him on at the Super Bowl, as you recall, and he was a lot of fun to be around. He's incredibly entertaining, and
Yes, that was the interview in which Shannon Sharp tried to bring up that same tired, hackneyed commentary about Christian being a white running back, and Christian looked at him and cringed like, dude, what are you talking about, man? I was a great player at Stanford. I've been a great player in the NFL. Why are you still bringing up this race shit for? Like, literally, Christian McCaffrey would have nothing to gain by talking about the NFL game from the perspective of a white running back. All he could possibly do is say something that could be misconstrued as inflammatory, and then Shannon Sharp's dumbass will be on TV talking about, I just want to say it was my fault that Christian said that as a white running back, he think that he might be under high scrutiny. Maybe I shouldn't have asked him that question.
very comfortable with himself, comfortable in his own skin, and he's growing on me as a player and as a young man.
Is he growing on you like a great player, or is he growing on you like a fungus?
Their franchise, and boy, they stepped up and said, "You are it for us. We're going to pay you."
Yes.
They sure did, because he has all the looks required to market him as the face of the franchise. I'll leave it at that. You have a guy in Cam Newton who won an NFL MVP award, took them to a Super Bowl, and they basically scrubbed all signs of Cam's tenure there. It's like, damn. It's like a dude who was with a chick for 5 years, helped her when she was down and out. All of a sudden, she deads him to move on to somebody else. Blocks his number, erases all his photos, all that shit. Dude is like, God damn. That's how they did Cam.
You are our number one building, but you are our cornerstone.
Well, he's the face of the franchise because guess what happens, Skip? There is no more Cam Newton and Kuechly retired.
Yeah.
So he's the undeniable face of the franchise.
Okay.
Right, but Shannon Sharp, you have two types of former faces of the franchise. You have the player who used to be there, and they want that player and his exploits to be remembered. And then you have the guy who they don't want there to ever be another mentioning of his name. It's like in ancient Rome. You had certain Roman emperors who passed away, and there were statues and memorials built to them. And then you had emperors like Nero who passed away, and they wanted to strike his tenure from the record.
Now, to the point you made, and I will speak from the white perspective, I will be the first to admit I might have a little bit of white unbias, if you will, or it's definitely an anti-bias, because I still look at him and I say, this can't be happening. I'm sorry, because you brought up John Riggins. I have to go to John Riggins to go back to 1982. That's 28 years ago.
Yes.
Is that right? 38 years ago.
Yeah.
38 years ago. Sorry, 38 years ago. To find a year in which I said a white running back is the best back in football because John Riggins took over the league that year. Remember, it was
John was also, I think, in his early 30s that year because he played with the Jets. I think he played with Joe Namath back in like the early 70s. So John Riggins had been in the league for a while. See, back then, they didn't so much have that philosophy like they have today, where a running back at 20 years old only has 9 or 10 years left to play, like it's the movie Logan's Run or something. Back then, they just evaluated a running back year by year. So you had guys who were 30, 31, 32 years old who were still in the NFL and being given carries. When I first started watching football, the Giants had a running back by the name of Otis, a.k.a. O.J. Anderson, who was like 33, 34 years old, and they would still give him the football.
Give strike short year. Mm-hmm. But he took it over down the stretch, and in the Super Bowl, he carried 38 times for 166 yards. And remember, he broke the game over with a 43-yarder in the fourth quarter against the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
And I said, Riggo is it.
Right.
But remember, Riggo went 225, 230.
Correct.
And he was a high school 100, that is back in the 100-yard dash days.
Yeah.
But he twice won, it was in Kansas, but he won the 100-yard dash in his state twice as a junior and senior in high school. Okay, my point is, he could run a little bit, okay? Well, this kid, obviously, he's got genes back to a grandfather who was a sprint.
I think he ran in the Olympics.
Yes, he did. He did. So,
well, damn, let me find out Christian McCaffrey is one of the Armitages from Get Out. His grandfather ran in the Olympics. Did he lose to Jesse Owens?
Again, is there a little bit of bias on my part? Yeah, because Peyton Hillis became a joke because he went from Madden cover to bust. But it was off 1 year in 2010 when he had 1,100 yards.
Right.
And
he took so much damage, though. The way that guy ran was so crazy, so haphazard, and to be honest with you, so irresponsible. He would always dive into every pile head first. He would run into every tackler, helmet down, head first. They need to check up on him because he might be suffering from early onset CTE. I hope not, but the way that he ran, the way that he played, it wouldn't shock me at all.
7th round pick, and he sort of came out of nowhere, and he was like, where you looked at him and it was just a rarity.
And Skip, Peyton Hillis was more Mike Allstott.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Allstott from Tampa.
Yeah.
He wasn't like this kid. This kid's an elusive. This kid got home run ability.
He's got home run ability. He's not blazing fast, but he's pretty fast.
He's fast enough that if he gets behind you, he'll score. But he's not someone who's going to run away from the crowd. Like, you'll watch him run and be like, God damn, he can run. I think he ran around a 4.45, somewhere around there, which is very fast, but it's not elite level speed.
I mean, he's 4.40.
Yeah, he ran
somewhere around there.
I think he ran the same time or maybe a tad quicker than Zeke.
Yeah, tad quicker. Zeke has lost some of his
I agree. And that's visible too. Zeke used to be a guy who had surprising speed. Like if he got behind you, like in his rookie year, that game in Pittsburgh where Dak threw him the screen and he took it to the house, Zeke was one of those guys, if he got behind you, he could take it. Now he's getting tracked down.
The point is, he's growing on me, but yet I still look at all these other running backs who are behind him, and man, Dalvin Cook and Saquon and even Aaron Jones had a special year last year. Nick Chubb just exploded on the league last year. It's just hard to believe that he is dominating this league right.
Because it's the Eminem effect, Skip Bayless. It's the Eminem effect. You're underrated because you're Caucasian, and once you show that you can compete and be proficient and play extremely well, they're going to start to overrate you. I agree with you. All those guys you named, I would take them over Christian McCaffrey, maybe even in Aaron Jones. But it is what it is. It's the Eminem effect.
Right now,
And because of the season that he had last year, he deserves to be ranked above most of those guys. But as a player, is he better than them? No.
Take anything away from him except he's not transcendent within his franchise. And I know they've had...
And he's not going to be transcendent in the NFL. They were trying to market him last year as the guy who was going to break Marshall Faulk's record. And he's not Marshall Faulk. Sorry. Marshall Faulk ran like a 4.340.
Issues, Cam State beat up, and they're mixing and matching quarterbacks. But his records were...
I remember being, I think maybe a freshman in high school or in the 8th grade, watching Marshall Faulk run for San Diego State. ESPN would show their games like on Saturday night around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. It was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen, watching that guy run the football in college. That dude Marshall Faulk was off the charts, out of this world. The only running back more exciting to watch was Barry Sanders.
2017, they went 11-5. But Cam had a lot to do with that. Mm-hmm. And remember, he didn't do much. He only ran for 435 yards as a rookie, mm-hmm. and it was his yards per carry were 2.7. Did you see? Would you have said that's the number one running back? No, you would not have. He started catching it, but then the teams, as he started carrying more, they went 7-9, and then 5-11 last year.
Great stats. In other words, he's putting up a lot of empty calories.
Did he dominate the league on the scoreboard? I mean, in the wins-loss column? No, he did not.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they put him at 6, because he did have a historic season.
Right, but Shannon, Skip's point is, if what he was doing was not resulting in wins, that means that, once again, as I've already stated, it was empty calories. They were giving him the football to gas up his numbers. On a winning team, can he do that? Can he be that guy in the backfield where his team is 11-1 and they're going up against a division rival who's 12-0 or 10-2? Can he have one of those 27 carry, 165-yard games? I don't think so. And to me, that's not an attempt to besmirch him. I think that he's going to be a very effective player for the next 2 or 3 years, and then they're going to bump him over to slot. That's part of, quote unquote, what they call white privilege. I just call it white racialism. There are going to be some advantages that are given to the nation of people that are in rulership at the time. And it's going to be nuanced. It's not necessarily always going to be overt. But yes, he is being subjected to the Eminem effect. Is he the number 6 best player in the NFL? No. But a lot of these NFL players right now, they might be mesmerized by what they're seeing. I personally am not. I think that he's very talented, but I just don't see it lasting very long. And I totally agree with Skip Bayless.
Look at this kid and what he did. You mentioned Dalvin Cook. Look what Dalvin Cook has outside. He has Thielen, he had Diggs. To lift coverage to say, oh no, okay, you drop these guys, they got to go one-on-one. You look at Zeke. Look at what Zeke had. He had Cooper and Gallup. If you look at
Well, here's my issue with that, Shannon Sharp. And I understand what you're trying to say. We're going to find out a lot about Dalvin Cook this season because he's not going to have Diggs. When it comes to Ezekiel Elliott, Ezekiel was running for 235 yards a game in college in big bowl games. So let's not try to act like Ezekiel is, like he's the beneficiary of his receivers opening up the defense. In his rookie year, I think they had Des Bryant and somebody else on the outside, and he ran for 1,600 yards.
Who else? Cleveland. Mm-hmm. They got Jarvis Landry, they got Odell. Imagine if this kid had receivers outside that could lift the coverage.
I mean, I love DJ Moore, but that's one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the Cowboys' offensive line. Oh, man. Imagine if he had that. And
imagine if Saquon had that.
To the game.
Might be 2,000 yards rushing.
We got to stop one guy. They ain't got but one guy. And he still come out the game. He gonna have 25 carries for 108 yards, and then he gonna have 10 catches for 117 yards. That's what he's doing.
Well, can they go win a Super Bowl with him as the driving force?
No.
They gonna have to get some big. Teddy Bridgewater making $23 million. He gonna have to show why they paid him that and moved on from Cam. DJ Moore is gonna have.
I suspect that they just brought in Teddy Bridgewater to be a steadying force in the locker room at quarterback, but they just want to highlight this kid McCaffrey. They want to showcase him. That's all. They're going to try to do something historic with McCaffrey over the next 2 or 3 years, but they're not really concerned about winning Super Bowls per se.
Continue to build, and maybe they got to have to get someone outside to help DJ Moore. But I like what this kid is doing. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he's been this good. I'm not.
Well, he comes from a long bloodline of very successful athletes.
Yeah.
And I congratulate him because last night, that was an achievement.
Yeah.
Your peers are saying you're the best running back. and you're the sixth best player.
Well, it
I agree with that.
says she's a better athlete than the family. Says she's better than 8 or so.
Yeah.
I would take,
What was
I would-
she, like a
She was a
volleyball?
soccer player.
Soccer.
Yeah, so I would take Lisa at her word.
I remember covering him in college too, and he's an incredible piano player.
Yes.
What can't this guy do?
Yes.
I mean, truly, he is incredibly talented, and like Skip mentioned, impressed us at the Super Bowl. And cool that, hey, Shannon, you can take a little credit for this. You've known him for a while. Right?
I take a little
No.
bit.
Shannon loves showing that same tired-ass photo of him sitting down with little baby Christian on his lap. Look at this, Skip. It was the best moment of my life. I won 3 Super Bowls, but never in my life have I gotten this close to a white baby. I was so happy that day.
All right, guys, we're going back.
But anyway, that's it on that, brothers. We'll see what happens with Mr. Christian McCaffrey. I think that he's very talented. I just don't think that his shelf life as a running back is going to be much longer. So peace.